The story begins on a battlefield where the protagonist is face to face with what seems to be a final boss, Horn with a big sword. He says that God is dead and that humanity now worships money and references arcane engineering. However, at the end of that pursuit, they ended up turning themselves into slaves of monsters. Holding the sword and trembling, the protagonist asks how that is fair. Seeing the boss pulling out the sword, he throws himself forward, saying that none of this makes sense. The guy is screaming there. An explosion sweeps across the whole city. And this actually is the best modern apocalypse game that exists, called Arcane Soul. Now in the present, our guy is looking at his phone screen saying that this pay-to-win game is a disgrace. This is our boy Kim Jun-soo, 22 years old. Looking at the character agonizing on the screen, he says this is so unfair. How is a poor guy like him, who doesn't spend money on the game, supposed to win anything? The guy in front of him says that he actually did pretty well for someone playing with a free character. But of course his own character is so strong that even on autoplay he beat the protagonist. Then he finishes off the poor guys on the ground, saying that in the end he actually did pretty well for someone who doesn't spend money on the game. The poor guy is there walking down the street, full of rage, cursing the heavens, saying that even after spending 10,000 hours on this damn game, he can't beat anyone who spent just a little money. Clearly this wasn't a game. This is the disgrace of a casino with characters. But he says that in the end he's the idiot for still playing this crap. You should just be doing homework and moving on with life. But like a true addict, he's going to try pulling the daily free character to see what comes this time. But this time, things were different. A platinum chest appeared, surrounded by a mystical aura. He recognized it instantly. Bro, what he got from that chest was the exact same character the guy was using. The SSR rank Celestial Demon. Right then, he couldn't believe it. That was literally the rarest and most expensive character in the entire game. The chance of pulling that while playing for free is 0.00006. In other words, yeah, impossible. Like winning the lottery. Right away, he starts using all the free characters. He had to power up the new one, which is way more powerful. At least since he's been playing for a long time, he has tons of experience and is gonna max that character out. No more getting beaten up by those bastards who spend money on the game. Then all of his characters start being fused into the Celestial Demon. The experience begins to rise and he tosses the phone in the air, saying goodbye to Warrior Kim. Warrior Kim, right, which is the name of his character, since he's named Kim and the character is a warrior. Incredible. A genius at naming characters. But hold up, folks, look who's showing up from the side. Right after he got the Celestial Demon, the guy's expression changed. He wondered why this event felt kind of familiar, like something he'd read before. Next scene, he opens his eyes and he's in a hospital, people. Wait, so it wasn't a nice guy, or was it? He gets up all crooked, wondering where he is and why he's there. Of course, his head starts hurting right away, and he remembers the truck that came right at him. The guy kinda dodged it, but the hit still landed on his body. As soon as he gets back to his senses, a nurse walks into the room and calls him Warrior Kim. She says she'll go get a doctor, but he's sitting there confused, trying to understand why she called him Warrior Kim. When he looks at his name, that's exactly what it says on the file. The poor guy's a bit lost, wondering if the hospital staff are a bunch of crazies or just fans of that game. Maybe it's just a joke because he spent those 10,000 hours playing as Warrior Kim, leveling everything up to boost the Celestial Demon. But wouldn't it be ironic if he actually became Warrior Kim? The second he tries to get up from the bed and touches the ground with his foot, man, pain shoots through him. First realistic accident where the protagonist actually has consequences. The others just get up and walk like it's solo leveling. The nurse comes running and shouting, telling Warrior Kim that obviously he can't be walking around just yet. Then the doctor shows up and says that for someone who got hit by a truck, he's actually in decent shape. But before he can leave, he'll have to run a magical vision test. Of course, Kim Jun-soo is confused. What is this stuff about calling him Warrior Kim in magic tests? A bit later at the front desk, someone does some calculations and says that, considering all the costs, it's going to be just $22 million. The poor guy freezes for a second and asks why he's paying US hospital prices. The doctor, smiling, completely ignores him and says that if he doesn't have insurance, he'll obviously have to pay out of pocket. The poor guy says he pays his taxes on time. He was entitled to the Korean national health system. But the lady's confused and says that in the land of the orange guy, there's no public health system. Actually, she asks if he has insurance from the Legion or the Magic Tower. Every second, he's understanding less and less. That's when he remembers he's heard terms like those before. Magic Legion, Mega Corporation, Magic Tower, and Sacred Order. The 4 factions that ruled that game. The world where the gods abandoned humanity and arcane science advanced drastically. Earth was polluted by monsters and humans had to modify themselves to survive. And now the poor guy finally gets it. He ended up in a world that's insanely hard to survive in. And worst of all, he landed there right after his accident and is already all messed up. Walking around the zone, he says this is so unfair. The second he was happy about getting the Celestial Demon, something like this happens and he becomes a tutorial character. Maybe it's divine punishment for having discarded all those Warrior Kims he had. When he enters the room, he's shocked. It's a cubicle smaller than the one he used to live in. He's already wondering why the hell this warrior Kim is so damn poor. He falls onto the bed saying that now he's screwed. His body's wrecked, he has no money, and on top of that, he's a tutorial character. At least it's Arcane Soul, which he knows so well. The problem is, he knows that soon there'll be nuclear war and dimensional explosions. The ancient gods will come seeking revenge and this place will turn into hell. He doesn't know how or why he ended up there, but he's 100% sure that if he stands still, he dies. That's when the madman has a crazy idea, bro. He grabs a pen and says, this is the moment to find out. Better now than later. He stabs his own hand and screams in pain, but right away it turns hilarious. The wound disappears and he gets excited, saying he knew it would work. Just like that, he gains a trait, wound recovery. That's the reason he was able to create so many warrior Kims. That's the only character with no base traits. On the other hand, you can do certain things to earn different attributes, and for him, that's perfect. Someone who has to rely on strategy instead of an overpowered character. And now he's got the biggest advantage because he became Warrior Kim himself. The first trait he got, wound recovery, already healed his leg and all the damage from the accident. As long as he works hard, he can get any trait he wants. And he doesn't have time to stand around because Arcane Soul is the kind of place where you die if you're poor or powerless. You also die if you're unlucky, and you die if you run away too much. But he's not gonna let any of that happen to him. Back at the start of the game, he was ranked 100 in Kim 1,689. But he played and played and played. After 10,000 hours, being the only person who made it that far without spending a cent, he was in the top 10, rank 9, one of the best players. All of that was always with Warrior Kim, the very body he's in now. Already in a player zone, a bearded guy asks Warrior Kim if it's really his first time there. Our boy says yes and says he wants to join the mana purification business. Truth is, first he needs to make money, because in this gacha game, bro, money is everything. And the only thing he's got right now is his body, so that's how he's gonna earn. The old guy throws his foot up on the table and says that, yeah, it might be called mana purification, but he should know exactly what cleaning a dungeon means. That was director Choi Shion-soo. A little awkward, the protagonist says he does, and the guy immediately comments that there's absolutely nothing on his resume. But our boy knows that the job he's asking for is miserable, so he'll definitely get hired. Cleaning contaminated mana isn't something a lot of people are willing to do. The reason is, as more and more monsters started taking over the Seoul region, dungeon cleanups became a necessary task. Basically, it means collecting battle debris that's emitting contaminated mana. The problem is, constant exposure in that place can lead to instant death. There's a guy there with his hand on his head, releasing a dark aura, asking for help, and suddenly he transforms. The result of exposure is turning into something extremely dangerous, which is then immediately executed. Shunsu goes ahead and says he's hired, and once they've got enough people, he'll be placed in a team. But he recommends the boy think it over. He's seen a lot of people start out in this line of work and soon after become something unrecognizable. Kim Junsu, however, replies that he shouldn't worry. If there's one thing he has, it's patience, bro. The guy played 10,000 hours for free, man, so if he's got anything, it's patience and experience. But in the next panel, we see the team captain named Deer. That's literally his name, folks. Well, yeah, you can see the little horns there. Makes sense. He asks if he's the new trash that's gonna join the team. A bit confused, our boy answers like, yeah, he thinks it's him, but he didn't come here to get roasted like that. That's when Deer grabs him by the collar and gets up close, asking if he thinks this is some kind of playground. Where's the fire in the kid's eyes? He's sure the boy will soon be begging to be killed after going through an instant mutation. Kim doesn't care about any of that and just replies, fine, he'll stay aware of something like that, while remembering that in the game it was like that too. This guy was always trying to scare people. The real question is, why is a guy like Deer, someone ranked R, even here? Apparently he used to look normal before awakening and growing those little legs too. That's when another guy in a blue shirt comes running and tells Deer to stop messing with the rookie. After all, they were already sure on people working this niche. This guy is Red Hog with 5 years of experience in the field. Deer, though, says he doesn't have many expectations for the kid, as long as he doesn't get in the way, and that's good enough. Then he walks off, saying it's time for them to get going. They've got 5 spots to clean. Warrior Kim isn't happy about getting humiliated like that. For some reason, this bastard was even crueler in real life than in the game. But Red Hog tells him to relax, saying that while the guy seems annoying, he's actually a decent person. So our boy just says, okay then. Next scene, they're standing in front of a metropolitan gate. The smell there was absolutely awful, but the boss just tells them to get ready. They're going in. As soon as he swipes the card and the door opens, he's already shouting for everyone to get into position. Among the piles and piles and piles of rubble, there are what seem to be slimes. Actually, they weren't just slimes, they were contaminated slimes. And the annoying part about this creature wasn't its strength or danger, but the simple fact that even if you cut it in half, it doesn't die. It only dies if you find the mana core that's hidden somewhere inside its body. Everyone's already all tangled up when Kim charges straight at one of them. The teammate who's being swallowed up by a monster looks back, and Kim's coming and swinging a pickaxe, apologizing but saying he won't be responsible for what happens next. He just barely manages to hit the core and avoid the guy's leg. The poor dude nearly fainted, but the slime died. Meanwhile, the guy who merely got his junk sliced in half is trembling on the ground. Our warrior Kim, on the other hand, is already running and finishing off everything, striking core after core non-stop. The boss and the rest of the team are confused. It looked like the bastard was killing each one in a single hit, something that shouldn't be possible since the cores are randomized. But that actually is something pretty much impossible. So now we go back to 2 days earlier. The lunatic was on the ground in a playground, digging around for something. Families were even pulling their kids away saying not to look at this craziness. But then suddenly, Kim found what he was looking for, a 501 coin. And because of that, he earned the treasure hunter trait. For him, that was the most important thing for a warrior Kim. While he's celebrating having found the coin, an old lady tells the kids not to listen to that crazy guy. But the truth is, our protagonist knows that before you start killing monsters, there are a few things worth collecting. Next scene, he's in front of a trash can, vomiting. And with that, he acquires the contamination resistance trait. That one was one of the worst, since apparently, he had to deal with a bunch of stinky stuff and garbage. Just like in the game, you get certain traits as long as you fulfill certain conditions. Obviously, right? Because he is Warrior Kim. In total, you could have 6 traits activated at the same time and could switch between them whenever you wanted. With Treasure Hunter, he could see what his opponent's weaknesses were. That's because that trait let him easily spot mana cores. But then the slime explodes in the middle of the group. Deer's there shielding himself, telling them to be careful and not to end up swallowing any of that contaminated mana. Meanwhile, Kim, man, is looking at the inside of the creature, soaked in slime, saying that hard work always pays off. Warrior Kim really was the perfect class for someone who likes to put in the effort. And of course he can't be contaminated, right? Because he's got the resistance trait activated. Even though he's acting all badass, playing the tough guy, on the bus, he's totally wiped out after a day of work, bro. Red Hog, though, comes over and thanks him, saying that it's because of our boy that everyone's getting off early today. He sits beside him and says he's never seen anyone work as well as he does. Maybe he'll awaken like Deer. But our boy lies, says nah, nothing like that. He just has a bit of military experience, that's all. The guy still praises him, saying that if that's true, then he really is amazing. But then, out of nowhere, horns appear on his forehead, and Kim already realizes that the guy's not even noticing that he's undergoing changes automatically. Our boy says, yeah, you should probably start taking it easy and take a break from work. But Red Hog says he'd rather turn into a mutant than face the reality of a life full of debt. This game world is perfect, bro. The Korean work routine of 25-hour workdays with the US healthcare system. All the best parts of capitalism. And Kim, poor guy, he knows someone like Red Hog doesn't have many options. 4 days pass, and once again, the job is done. Since he's the only one with poison resistance, he's also the only one who finishes the job without being totally wrecked like the others. Someone nearby is puking, bro. And yeah, it looks like Red Hog is starting to go through the transformation. Kim just thinks to himself that he told this guy to stop overworking like that. That's when Deer shows up behind him, saying that apparently the kid's still full of energy. Maybe it's because he's so young. He never imagined someone like him would be that good at the job. Back off, Deer, we haven't even seen a waifu yet. Bro, go away. Our humble boy replies that it's thanks to the hard work of the team. But obviously, right, it's all thanks to those damn traits. Deer, though, sits down and says that he, on the other hand, is dead tired. That's when suddenly they hear a sound nearby. When they turn, they see that Red Hog is beginning to transform. The others call out to him, asking if he's feeling okay. In the same second, Deer takes off running, telling everyone to be careful. And Kim already knows what's about to happen. They're hugging their friend, telling him to keep his mind clear, that they'll get out of there soon. But man, his expression changes. Right then, an explosion sweeps across the cleanup site. When Kim opens his eyes again, a giant red foot is stomping the ground, and his friend had turned into a mutant. The sad thing about the mutation is that in 1 second, the person loses all sanity. And if they don't take this guy down right there, they won't be able to get out alive either. The problem is the 6 traits he has equipped right now are all focused on monster cleanup. None of them will help him win this fight. No matter how he looks at this situation, he knows that everyone there is screwed. Bro, I really thought this was gonna be one of those scenes where the protagonist dodges everything, comes out like a badass. But nope, the story's keeping it real. With no combat traits, he just got punched in the face, blown into the ground, and left totally wrecked. At the very least, he got the resistance trait. Obviously, he wasn't going to give up that easily. He opens the status window and starts switching out his traits. Of course, strength would be useful right now. Mana Heart would help him focus his energy. Resistance would increase his chances of surviving each attack. Mana Absorption and Regeneration would work well together to help him recover. And the last piece of the puzzle, Corruption Resistance, since the enemy was a mutated creature. With that, he had all the basics set up and was time to go on the offensive. But who comes charging in, bro? It's Red Rogue, rushing in for another hit. Kim throws the shovel back and activates the strength trait. With that, he had 10 times the strength of a regular human. One smack with the shovel sent the creature flying like a golf ball. He's feeling confident, saying the rhythm's good and maybe he can do this. But then the sonic cousin stops midair, starts spinning, and comes right back at him. The bastard even bounces off a rock and comes from above. He's there wondering how he's supposed to dodge something like that. The whole ground explodes and Red Rogue rolls to the side. Our boy Kim Jun-soo managed to resist by activating the resistance trait that boosted his defense tenfold. But even getting ready to punch, he says that even with that cursed trait, it still hurt like hell. The problem is, he doesn't have time to think. If he stops here, he dies. He tries to throw a flurry of punches JoJo style, but the problem, bro, are the spikes on the monster's back. And worse, the mutant seems to have control and fires one like an arrow. Nope, not one. What the hell? The dude fired a whole barrage, and our boy got shredded. Man, I know he's got resistance, but now he's really done for, flat on the ground. But when it comes to perseverance, he's got plenty of that. All pierced up, he charges again to land another punch. I don't even know what happened, but the guy's hand is not looking too good. Red Rogue prepares another attack and blows up his arm. Bro, come on, this is the first monster he's fighting. It already feels like the final boss. The poor guy's just lying there thinking that the life of a warrior Kim is never easy. The monster comes in for a hammer strike to finish him and the ground explodes. We then see a flashback. Our boy was back there playing on mobile with his warrior Kim, telling everyone to come at him because he'd win. Back then, playing was so easy. All he had to do was tap a few times and the hunt began. He never thought about what the characters were actually going through. But now he realized it's painful as hell to even earn a mediocre trait. From inside Red Rogue's hand comes an attack that smacks him right in the face and sends him flying. The kid is all impaled, but suddenly, he's jacked. He finally acquired the mutant muscle trait. What the hell, bro? It's like Trembolone is flowing through the kid's blood. And he says now he understands. There's no winning without paying the price. The reason you went into those reckless attacks was to obtain this trait, which you could only get when mana, heart, and strength were activated at the same time. From the start, it was all for this moment. Red Rogue goes for another attack, but now he blocks it with his arm. He hits back full force, saying that move won't work on him anymore. The monster, though, fills his fist with spikes and lands a direct hit to the chest. That bastard, now he's full of holes again. What now? Gonna awaken another trait? Looks like that's exactly what's happening. His whole body, riddled with holes, starts regenerating. He had obtained the mutant body trait, and he thanks Red Rogue, saying that he's been evolving a lot thanks to his friend. The creature charges once more and the two lock hands, pushing against each other. Meanwhile, on the ground, Deer, who had been knocked out, starts to wake up and sees the chaos unfolding right in front of him. He doesn't understand what just happened with Warrior Kim or what kind of superhuman strength that was. How is it possible for a human to be fighting head-to-head with a mutant creature? The two monsters hit each other with an attack and both go down. Even with all those traits, things weren't easy for our warrior Kim. His size was similar to the monsters, but even then, he was at a disadvantage. The creature roars and he knows it's dangerous, but he has no choice. The monster charges in again, Sonic style, while he activates contamination resistance. He's going to have to do the only thing left. Use a delete with that trait. Bro, Deer is freaked out. I don't know what he deleted, but Kim's transforming all weird. He turned red, more buff and giant. Up the Trembolone dose. Guy went full demon mode, drawing pentagrams on his head and firing a laser at Red Rogue. Half the area got wiped out and Deer's on the ground, still trying to process how the kid just did that. The protagonist glances back and Deer can't understand why the mutants are fighting each other. That should only be possible if Kim had transformed and still managed to keep his consciousness. In that moment, bro, he was the mutant warrior Kim. Man, the dude's like 30 meters tall, while Deer's crawling on all fours like, But the big guy is coming up from behind. That massive hand is coming down to crush him. But when he looks back again, Kim had already transformed back. The energy ran out and he dropped to the ground like a bag of trash, celebrating that at least he survived. All of this was only possible thanks to the corruption resistance trait that allows you to unlock the mutant body and mutant muscles. And then if you have both activated and delete the resistance, you gain the mutant trait. Everyone believes that once that happens, there's no turning back to normal. But of course, after 10,000 hours of gameplay, he figured out what had to be done. First, when you have the mutant muscles, you kind of get used to that feeling. And in the moment you delete the other trait, you try to hold on to a bit of your consciousness. The moment the fight ends, you remove the mutant trait and re-equip poison resistance, and that way, you de-transform. Sneaky bastard. Turns out you're a real strategist, huh? Only problem is, he's lying there in the trash, completely done for. His muscles hurt like hell, and he can't even move. The character with no stats is completely jacked now, and monster. He pulls himself up, legs shaking like crazy, and remembers that when Red Rogue died, he got a level 1 human mana core. And he makes that crazy face, saying it was all worth it. He just forgot one small detail, that guy was supposedly his friend. But clearly he doesn't care, bro. What matters is the mana core. He's jumping with joy, saying this cleanup job really paid off. Then Deer shows up with two guys behind him, asking if our boy is okay, wanting to know if he really became a mutant. What the hell just happened? Obviously, Kim doesn't want weird rumors starting about him. So he says he thought the only way to win was to let the virus affect him, hoping he'd return to normal. In other words, it was all luck. Deer seems unconvinced, saying it was all too easy. But Kim just brushes it off and tosses the items in his hand, telling them it's time for everyone to head back and get some fresh air because that place was way too contaminated. Our boy's confident that after handing over some mana cores and saving these guys' lives, they'll probably keep his little secret. But Deer, yeah, he's standing there still kind of suspicious, clutching his balls nervously, back with Chief Xion-su, who's now all smiles and happy, saying he heard the kid went through a really tough situation. Must have been terrible. Kim says, nah, it was super easy and everything went just fine, while trying to figure out why the hell this guy is suddenly trying to suck up to him. Then the boss says he should have just come out and said he was a superhuman. For sure, he would have been given a way better job than dungeon cleanup. Now it makes sense. The guy thinks our boy has some kind of special ability. In the world of Arcane Soul, what's a superhuman, right? Guess what? It's a human with abilities. Thanks for that, author. Really, your explanations are always so helpful. Without them, no one would understand anything. Obviously, in a world like this, where strength is everything, that's super rare. The protagonist is actually just a normal human, but since he killed a mutant, of course people would think otherwise. That's when the boss pulls his hand out of his pocket, saying he has to pay for the cleanup. Seeing the big old money pouch, our boy is more than happy to let the guy believe whatever he wants. The guy slams 50 million on the table and says that usually they keep 20% and the rest would be split among the team. But this time, it'll be different. He says they'll only keep 5% and even give Kim a bonus. Our boy is speechless, man. In total, he's walking away with 12 million. The face of a lunatic, saying how nice it is to work with honest people like that. As he's walking out of the office, he's all cheerful, thinking about how he's going to spend that money. A guy nearby says that he looks really pumped. Must have gotten a nice payday. A little embarrassed, Kim says yeah, while remembering that this was one of the guys who worked the job with him. Then the bald guy says he wants to talk to him and ask for a favor. His wife is sick, and he wanted to borrow a bit of money. Oh, poor Kim. He just got paid not even 10 seconds ago, and people are already asking to borrow from him. What a damn curse. The guy's apologizing, saying the only chance to save her came when they worked together. He realized Kim was a good kid, but our protagonist isn't sure if helping people like this is a smart move. After all, he barely understands how this world works. What if this guy stabs him in the back later? Not to mention, he barely has enough to support himself. But in the end, he's just a soft-hearted kid. He asks the guy not to bow since he's older and hands over some mana stones, saying it's not much, but he hopes it helps. Little Kim would never ignore someone in need. Sometime later back home, look at this bastard's face, saying that idiot really is a sucker for giving him money just because he made a sad face. Oh wait, this ain't home. It's an alley. That damn Deer is there, saying the kid must be new to the game to go around handing out money like that. The guy says if he had randomly made up a story about having a kid too, Kim would have given him even more money. Not to mention, he's pissed that the bastard probably got paid more than them. Deer says that yeah, something's definitely off. That guy isn't even a superhuman, so maybe it's time they taught him a lesson. The bald guy asks what he means and Deer says it's obvious. That little idiot must have some weird ability, and they all know his secret. He then crushes the mana stones and says it's time to show just how scary this world can really be. Oh boy, background characters never stay satisfied, huh? Y'all had a good thing going, but now you're asking to get stomped. Our boy, on the other hand, first paycheck in hand, is already in a luxury room getting a massage. Oh my dear Kim Jun-soo, tell him there's a female mess used there, right? 'Cause it's getting a little suspicious. You're always hanging with Deer in the dungeons, and now you're in situations like this. But okay, whatever floats your boat, I guess. He's got that 2,000-hour game strategy, so he probably knows what he's doing. I'll let it slide because even after all those massages from that extremely qualified professional, his body's still aching all over from that forced transformation. The traits he can use really are multiple, but they're far from omnipotent. His body changes based on whichever ones are equipped, and obviously, it gets harder and harder for the body to handle their effects. But right, what's he gonna do? He can't survive or do much of anything without using all of them. So that's just how it is. Suddenly, something catches his attention while he's looking out the window, and instead of checking out girls in bikinis, he's staring at some tattooed uncle out there. The world of Arcane Soul is ruled more by gangs than by law, which is kinda natural, since this is a place where the police can't do anything. Superhuman players are the ones who decide everything. He's muttering to himself that he barely made it out alive, but doesn't know if he'll make it next time. At least now that he's Warrior Kim, he can use a bit of money to buy some items and actually make a difference. At a weapon shop, finally, the artist spent like 0.2 grams of pencil to draw a woman in this story, and she wants to know what he's here to sell. He says he brought some monster remains, but she already says she should warn him they're not buying any level 0 mana cores. He tells her not to underestimate him. He reaches into his backpack and says he's here to sell this, bro. A giant human mana core that looked like a Rasengan from Naruto. That was a level 2 core. No need for her to make that shocked face. What he'd done in the hotel room was fuse all the cores he got from that guy he killed, and all those slimes too. With that, he finally made a level 2 core they'd actually buy. And now he's blushing, saying the price depends on the level. If he gets a good amount, he'll have enough money to buy a weapon. She hands over a value of 4.77 million. And right away, he says he wants to take a look at the store's armor and weapons. She tells him to follow her behind the counter, and back there, man, it looks more like a military armory than a dungeon shop. There's like 30 M4s, pistols, bazookas, backpacks. This is more PUBG than solo leveling at this point. But the kid looks excited, saying for sure he'll pick out her best stuff. And yeah, he walks out with half of Afghanistan in his backpack, all hyped that now he can finally play Arcane Soul in peace. That's when suddenly, someone calls out to him. Now that one female character appeared, here comes the second. Artist getting bold now, and she wants to know if, by any chance, he's a mercenary because she needs help. He says no, he's not. So she says that's fine. She'll go look for someone else. Then she pulls out a wad of cash, saying she's on a business trip and is scared of a certain gang. All she wants is someone to protect her and her stuff. Kim immediately starts thinking that $500,000 just to do some bodyguard work isn't bad at all, especially since he just geared up. Right away, his expression changes and he says he would never ignore a girl in danger like her. If she needs a bodyguard, she can count on him. They start walking through some alleys and yeah, it's clearly starting to feel suspicious. He's wondering the same thing. Why would a girl who's supposedly on a business trip choose such a sketchy place like this? Suddenly, she picks up the pace, climbs the stairs, and says to just come around this corner. When he looks, she's at the end of the hallway saying it's just right there. And off he goes. Really? This idiot's gonna fall for this? But as the dear warrior Kim that he is, he couldn't see anything in that moment and unlocks night vision. But out of nowhere, bro, the girl pulls out a pistol and says he's actually more cautious than she expected. And before he can even ask what's going on, she's already pointing the gun and Deer is right behind him. Kim goes to say something, but the guy just says it's good to see him again. That's when it's our boy. He immediately asks what he did to deserve something like this. Just as Deer starts saying he seemed like an easy mark, Kim is already running. He throws the weapon backpack down and bolts for the end of the alley. Deer tells the girl to shoot, and the damned woman takes aim and lands a shot right in the spine. Our boy drops down the stairs like a piece of trash. The leader comes in complaining she was supposed to hit him in the leg. Now he's dead. She just says that's better than him getting away. The problem is, he really was dead now. The weird guy who became a mutant somehow was still human. The girl says maybe it's a good thing. There might be someone willing to buy that body of his. The leader doesn't care. He tells them to just collect the body already. But in the blink of an eye, the body was gone. They're all confused, not understanding what the hell just happened. Then the lights in the place explode and someone gets whacked in the back of the head. No one can see anything because the darkness is absolute. In addition to extra strength and all the resistance traits, there was something else. Back at the weapon shop, he made sure to buy a bulletproof vest because you never know what might happen. And the moment he got shot, he gained another trait, playing dead. And since no one can see anything, bro, it's easy for our boy to sneak up on Deer and clock him right in the jaw. The fool hits the ground immediately, but he gets back up and manages to land a kick. But our warrior says the bastard should have been grateful his life was saved before. Trying to kill the one who saved you? Definitely not the smartest thing he's ever done. But just as he goes in to stomp on his head, bang, another shot rings out. The girl shouts for him to freeze and asks if Deer is okay. Even while invisible, our boy still took a hit to the arm. And that's when he remembers, bro, in Arcane Soul, the scariest thing wasn't mutants or monsters. It was the people of that world. He was way too naive, trusted way too easily. Oh snap, he pulls out the Glock too, puts a bullet right in her hand to knock the weapon out. I thought it was gonna be like cold, calculated, Kira style, bam, headshot. But the other guy's still out here running his mouth, right? You can already tell he's gonna be the nice guy. What do y'all think? Leave a comment below. In that moment, would you rather he just killed both of them or not? The messed up part is that our idiot got distracted, and now Deer's coming in with a massive kick that lands right on the side of his mouth. Looks like he barely managed to dodge at the last second, but he dropped his gun in the process. And the worst part, the bastard's legs had transformed. Now he was a real Deer, bro, a level 1 superhuman. Our protagonist can't believe the bastard just evolved right in the middle of the fight. Seeing the little pop-up screen from Warrior Kim, he explains that in this game, any character can go through a superhuman awakening. It's basically the core growth mechanic of the game. And once someone awakens, they can easily overpower a human, even if they're armed with a rifle. And now, with his normal body, Kim's gonna have to deal with this guy who already transformed. In a single second, the guy turned into a blur, bro. Deer's ability was stereotropic jump, No clue what that means, but basically, a skill that lets him jump in multiple directions at insane speed. The bastard turned on creative mode and disabled gravity, bro. He's already scaling the wall to land a dropkick from above. Kim hits the Call of Duty shift key and slides out just in time. Deer can't believe that someone who hasn't awakened is dodging his attacks, but he goes in for another one, and this time, our boy is forced to defend himself. But the idiot's expression suddenly changes. Kim had pulled out a weapon and managed to block the full hit. He says that in the end, the guy really is just an animal. As he figured, buying that expandable baton was the best choice. A few hours earlier, back at the shop, he was wondering if it was even worth buying a weapon. Because, well, Warrior Kim. Guess what class he is? Yep, Warrior class. The stronger he got, the more useless guns would become. He needed something that matched a warrior-type character. Since there weren't any real swords available, the best option was to get that baton. And obviously, since his character is a warrior type, he gets bonuses using that kind of weapon. If Deer thought he was walking away from this untouched, yeah, no. Here comes our boy with the beatdown. Smack, lands the first one right in the stomach, and with that, he gains the strong hit trait. Finally, the first one that's actually specialized for his class. That buff could be added to any attack from above, below, or from the sides. And the good thing was exactly that, it could be used in tons of situations. But Deer is still dodging everything and goes in for another kick. Unfortunately, Kim had left a huge opening and maybe wouldn't be able to dodge this time. With no good options, he decides to tough it out, lets his arm take the hit and strikes back with the other, landing a blow right behind the knees. The guy was faster and would always land a hit, so Kim decides to just keep hitting every time he gets hit. And after landing a string of attacks, he gains his second trait, combo. At the early stages of the game, nothing's better for Warrior Kim than that. A strong hit plus a combo, perfect setup to hit fast and hit hard. Now the idiot's getting whacked from all sides, smack, right in the chest. He drops like a trash bag on wet asphalt while our boy celebrates, saying he finally took down that bastard. But then his hand suddenly starts to glow. He feels something strange, his whole body starts hurting and he crouches there, groaning in pain, clutching his arms, not understanding what's going on. A golden explosion and an aura bursts from his hand. Warrior Kim had awakened. He had become a superhuman. He clenches his fists and shouts to the skies in celebration, "Bro," the face of a psycho. He had finally stopped being just a normal person. The madman's even busting some b-boy moves now, saying that now his life's finally changing. That's when, suddenly, a dude with shorts on his back says it looks like he pulled it off. When our boy looks behind, bro, there's a guy walking in with a bazooka and 3 kilos of ammo. That's Iron Fist Kim, man. Right after Warrior Kim, he's the second most basic 2-star character. A class that's kind of like a reinforced soldier who uses firearms as his main weapons. On top of that, he can shoot with his prosthetic arms. And the biggest problem now for our boy? That bastard is the leader of the Iron Fist gang. Since Kim's been fighting in their territory, they must have taken that as a provocation. Iron Fist steps forward, presses the bazooka to Kim's chest, and asks if he even bothered to check where he was before causing all that mess. Kim tries to explain, right, he had to defend himself, it was better than dying, so he didn't really have much of a choice. The guy pulls out a pistol and says it looks like Kim was more scared of his enemies than of the Iron Fist gang. Poor Kim, man, he just finished one fight, and he already knows that if he gets into another one now, he won't survive. The guy points to his heart and says that in the end, Kim made the worst choice possible, and now he's going to find out what happens to people who pick a fight in their territory. After a second of silence, our boy says they forgot one thing. He grabs the guy's gun, bro, and says he's not going to die that easily. He pulls the trigger himself, and the bullet goes right through his chest. The guy's confused, trying to figure out if this lunatic really just shot himself while holding his gun. Our boy takes a step back, bleeding, and obviously this had to be some kind of condition to unlock another trait. This time it seemed to be a more advanced regeneration. Iron Fist, who sometimes I call Steel Fist, yes, sorry, background's messy, says it looks like the kid's got an interesting ability. Ah, now it makes sense. You can only unlock that advanced regeneration if you already have the basic one and have become a superhuman. But what our boy is trying right now is just sort of bluff. He knows these guys aren't going to let him go easily, so he's trying to intimidate them a bit. He points at the crew behind them and says that if they're not lucky, they're not making it out of there alive. They better be careful, because they're messing with Warrior Kim. The big guy laughs and says it looks like this Warrior Kim guy is pretty bold, and because of the kid's guts, he'll let him walk away alive this time. But he better understand exactly what that means. Our boy just nods and thanks him. The man extends his hand and says he's looking forward to working with him. Looks like our boy got the message. He's being spared, but he'll be working for the guy from now on. And for a kid scraping the bottom of the barrel in this city, some connections might not be so bad. He clasps his hands together and says, until next time. Steam cuts to the Tower of Superhumans. The game was already amazing, but in person, it was something else entirely. Totally different from where he had been staying before. Someone behind him thanks him for coming to visit the Superhuman Tower. I thought it was going to be a bombshell girl, but no, it's just a receptionist, kind of proper looking. But judging by how our boy's already blushing like crazy, he's clearly never seen even 16 micrograms of woman in front of him. The girl says she knows he must be there to get his superhuman certifications. All he needs to do is head into the room to get his mana and traits measured. Kim already noticed it. He must look so lost and clueless that she didn't even have to ask if it was his first time there. But just as he's entering the room, a loud noise breaks out and everyone starts clasping their hands together, kneeling, saying to look up. The saint is arriving. Apparently, the saint is either a ship in the sky, or maybe the saint herself is about to appear. A laser strikes the middle of the room and our boy is freaked out. Some robots arrive, and it looks like our boy recognizes them. He says it's the order of the old father. And seeing the girl in the black helmet, he wonders why a boss from the game is here. But everyone's kneeling, praying, worshipping her arrival. He figures that maybe he's inside some kind of tutorial timeline. At this point in the story, the saint really was a person, not a boss. But as the plot progresses, it's revealed that the order she works for is actually a cult disguised as a religion. And they start slaughtering the city's citizens without hesitation. The poor fools are there praying, saying the saint must have come to measure her power again. The girl pulls out a massive hammer, starts glowing gold, and is smiling like an absolute lunatic. Meanwhile, Kim can only think, this crazy lady is way too damn loud. Some yellow stuff pops up from the system, reacting, and she's standing there waiting for the result, still with that crazy face. The people look tense, then the result shows up. A saint, who really is a priest class, had level 8 mana and a 6-layer circuit. Everyone starts celebrating while she walks around with that same expression. But the one guy not celebrating, sweating buckets instead, is our boy. He mutters that they really shouldn't be cheering for something like this. A level 8 superhuman has the destructive power of an entire bombing fleet. Basically, they're a mobile national threat. And the worst part is, he knows this very same threat is going to wipe out Seoul in the near future. But seeing all that cult-like worship, he knows there's nothing he can say that'll change their minds about her. For now, he's going to do what he can, which means focusing on himself and leveling up. To avoid attracting too much attention, he decides to equip a few traits and stick with just 3. But then suddenly, the saint glances to the side. A guy standing next to her asks what's up, and she says there's something about that individual. In the blink of an eye, she's already behind him, saying he has a very interesting ability. He jumps in surprise, a little confused, saying she startled him, while trying to figure out why the hell this boss just came over to talk to him. Could she have noticed the traits he had equipped? Everyone in the crowd of worshippers is thinking the same thing. Why is the saint talking to that useless idiot? Suddenly, she grabs our boy's hand and says she wants to know his name. All awkward, he says the legendary name, Warrior Kim, while remembering there's only one reason a priestess asks someone's name in Arcane Soul. Out of nowhere, she starts praying to the old father, asking him to baptize and bless the boy, declaring that the one who sits on the black throne of gold would always grant him as much power as needed. The girl's really trying to baptize him. There are even glowing golden tattoos starting to rise on his body. She tells him to submit to the peace of the world and abandon the hatred of this place. The crowd's totally jealous, saying this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, especially coming from the great daughter and most powerful saint. But here's the problem for Kim. If he receives the baptized trait, he'll have no choice but to become a paladin. And even though those lunatics are going to attack the entire city, in the end, they're going to lose to Korea's strongest warriors. He gathers his courage, pulls his hand out of hers, and yanks away, thinking that this chick is just like a crypto scammer. Except in this case, it's guaranteed loss. Obviously, the crowd gasps. He falls to his knees and says he refuses to be baptized. The saint's expression immediately changes. She says she must have misheard something. Our boy, awkward but firm, says nope, she heard him just fine. She responds, well then, all right, we cannot deny the citizens their freedom, but he can be sure the old father will always be watching him. Yikes, she puts her hand on him, muttering some devil's hour curse, saying he better not forget that the holy light is already inside him. Oh snap, she turns around and leaves our boy literally on fire, roasting in front of everyone. He's being burned alive while the people around are saying it's his fault for refusing the baptism. Yeah, being an atheist in this world is definitely not worth it, someone says. What she used was called Divine Fever, a punishment ability for refusing baptism that causes extreme pain. Obviously, Kim, our guy with 10,000 hours of gameplay, already knew this was going to happen. But even so, having your entire body on fire still hurts like hell. Divine Fever was one of the strongest debuffs in the entire game. Basically, the never-ending pain makes people give up on life altogether. That's how the temple eliminates those who reject the baptism. Our boy is an idiot. I thought he'd have some trait to survive it, but he was about to die. Until by pure chance, someone threw a liquid on him that purified him. Yeah, I just mixed cured and purified, folks. New word for the gamer dictionary. It's that sort of bland girl from earlier that he fell for, right? She's the one who asks if he's okay. He thinks she's a bit crazy, since most people avoid helping anyone going through that whole baptism thing. But now, thanks to her healing, he just needed to hang in there a little longer. Finally, it appears, the divine resistance trait. The guy's practically in full cultivation mode, gathering energy. Obviously, he wouldn't have refused the baptism without a plan. Divine Fever, basically, burns away your mana. And since he's just a level 1 with barely any mana right now, the fever doesn't affect him all that much. Phase 1 complete, and now he's obtained Divine Resistance and has already equipped the trait. Problem is, he's still burning, still writhing in pain, while the girl's just throwing bottles at him. I thought it was rare healing potions or something, but no. She's literally just throwing regular water on him. But even if it's just plain H2O, it was helping him calm down. He was right there, bro, concentrating fire and water in his chest, while divine energy burned around him. Dude's full yin-yang mode, combining the pain of fire with the coolness of reason. With a tiny bit of mana left in his chest, he manages to extinguish the flames. Everyone shields their eyes, and what he awakens now is Mana Barrier. Now he's standing there all smug, arms crossed. 5 seconds ago, he was practically dying like an idiot, but now he's confident. If there's one thing that helps Warrior Kim survive, it's this. The girl asks if he's okay. He says yeah, thanks to her, while everyone else around is confused, wondering if he really survived Divine Fever. But the truth is, Kim didn't end the fire. Technically, he's still burning. It's just that he created a barrier between himself and the flames so he doesn't feel the pain. And this mad lad, without hesitation, walks straight up to the platform to measure his talents. When the scan completes, it shows that yeah, he's still level 1, but he has 6 circuits, which are basically like traits. The folks behind him say it all makes sense now, why the Saint was so interested. He's basically a super beginner. Kim didn't want to draw attention, right? But after everything that happened with the Saint, it was unavoidable. The girl at the desk congratulates him, saying it's the first time she's ever seen a newbie with 6 abilities. Now he just needs his superhuman license to be fully official. Sometime later at the registration desk, there it is, the license he worked so hard to get. She congratulates our boy on becoming a complete superhuman. He's practically glowing. His heart's about to burst from his chest. He says he worked hard to achieve something like this. She says she'll explain all the new privileges he now has. But nah, our boy starts listing them before she can even speak. Lower taxes. He can carry weapons. The higher his level, the more money he earns. He's immune to arrest for a bunch of things. Transportation, food, a ton of stuff is free. And there's more benefits too. She's standing there confused, like, yeah, looks like you memorized everything you gain. He says this because he's addicted to games. Or actually, to avoid saying games, he says he's a doctor in superhumanology. Okay. But suddenly, he says he needs help with something that's not included in the benefits. Looking out at the crowd outside, he wants a way to leave this place without drawing attention. She stands up and tells him not to worry. She's already prepared something. He is all flustered when she gets up and tosses a little jacket over his shoulders, telling him to follow her. We've probably gotten so used to massive wafers that this more normal one feels almost too normal. But maybe that's a good thing. It's like yin-yang, balance, you know. After so many intense ones, now there's a calm one. Perfect equilibrium. As they walk through with the cloak, he thanks her, saying that without her, this would have been way harder. That cloak had the stealth ability, and since he used it, he also gained the stealth trait. She then points to the end of the hallway and says, unfortunately, she can only take him that far. Our boy thanks her, and then she walks away, while this fool's standing there thinking he never imagined someone in Arcane Seoul could be that kind. Not to mention, she was cute. So when he gets stronger, he's definitely gonna pay her back. He pulls out the card she gave him to check her name. Her name was Backsoaring. And then he remembers a badass from the game, a sword-wielding maniac from the Berserker class. One of the top 3 strongest warriors in the whole Berserker class. Since she always had a crazy expression in the game, he hadn't recognized her. But now he realizes there was something familiar. He never imagined that crazy woman could smile like that. For anyone who thought that finally his life was going to start getting better, forget it, man. There he is, exhausted and dried out because he's been farming nonstop for a whole week ever since he became a superhuman. This whole time he cleared a single dungeon, which proves right that Warrior Kim's efficiency is garbage. One of the reasons, though, that he's doing so badly is that they always have to keep traits that can make mana regeneration really high so he can maintain that barrier. That's because, you know, if he removes it, he'll be consumed by the sacred fire. The problem is, he's sure that if he had specialized only in hunting, he would finish many hours ago. The problem is that to get rid of this debuff, he needs a potion called Nectar, which is the only thing that removes Divine Fever. But, of course, it's super expensive, and the poor guy has no way to get it. The only way to gather money is by doing this cleaning mission. But man, it's taking way too long. While he's there, worn out and stuck in this loop of suffering, the phone rings. It's Director Choi, and he wonders when this bastard is going to stop calling. That bastard is way too persistent. Right when he's about to hit reject on the call, suddenly, his expression changes, and it looks like he just had a really good idea. Sometime later at the Seongsu agency, someone is welcoming Warrior Kim. It's the same boss from before, saying he heard that he survived the Divine Fever, and on top of that, has 6 abilities. Truly, he's a man of honor. Our boy is just standing there saying, yeah, things turned out that way. He now wants to know how the job he requested is going. Out of nowhere, the guy's expression changes. He says it's way too hard. Nectar is an extremely rare medicine that can only be obtained from superhumans above level 5. Right away, Kim stands up, saying that if he's not going to get it, then he's out. But obviously the guy blocks the way out, saying he doesn't need to worry, that the item is basically guaranteed soon, so there's no need for him to leave. Kim knows that this bastard has contacts with countless hunters who started there and nowadays are really strong, so it's possible that he really can get a nectar. So he sits back down and asks what the request is this time. The guy shows something on a tablet and asks if he's ever heard of number 1 security. He gets kind of confused, says he hasn't heard of it, and asks if it's some kind of security company or something. The guy explains that it's a private military company and one of the 10 strongest in the country. Apparently, the CEO and the vice CEO are a couple who also work there. Both of them come from traditional martial families, so the company has a solid foundation. Kim asks what the problem is with a protection company like that. There's no way they need protection for a protection company. The old guy says it has nothing to do with that. The son is the problem. He's over 20 years old and still hasn't awakened any superhuman ability. Kim says that really is supposed to be unlikely since both parents are martial artists. The old guy says the boy has already accumulated mana at level 8, but even so, he hasn't awakened. And it seems like the type of person they're looking to hire is a level 1 superhuman warrior, which is, exactly our boy. Kim gives a little grin and says that if that's the case, it sounds like a good job and he'll go take care of it. Next scene, they're already in a massive mansion, sitting on the couch, and the old man says it looks like the CEO of the company is kind of busy. Our boy, on the other hand, is just looking around impressed by how luxurious the place was. Their expressions change, though, when someone says sorry for taking so long. The woman on the right apologizes for the delay, introduces herself as Lee Miri, and says the guy next to her is Seo Jeonju. That guy was born to be a winner. The guy even had CEO in his name. Kim's boss is already bowing, thanking them for their presence. Meanwhile, Kim already realized both of them were superhumans at least level 6. The amount of mana they had was pretty considerable. The dad there, the Seo Jeonju guy, has a grumpy face that looks more like a primate, saying he already noticed they're both pretty weak, and it's not going to be worth it. The wife asks him to calm down, especially since it's not strength they need at the moment. Then they sit down and she thanks them both for coming. She asks if they're willing to accept the request. Kim says that's fine, but first he would need to check the condition of the sun and see if there's anything preventing the awakening. Then suddenly, Seo Jeonju is smashing the table. The guy already stood up cursing, saying he's not going to tell something like that to an amateur like him. Man, this guy really needs to take some chill pills. Our boy didn't even do anything yet. The mom tries to calm down her primate of a husband, apologizing and saying he always acts like this when it comes to their son. But really, it's something they can't tell someone from outside. If he accepts the request, then they'll explain the situation. Besides, she's already noticed that he must be needing nectar. Honestly, it's a pretty dumb family, right? How are you going to hire someone before he even knows the situation and whether he can even solve it? Now you gave him the info, and what's he supposed to do? Our boy, though, doesn't really have a choice. His efficiency is crap, and he needs to get back to farming as fast as possible. Obviously, with his 10,000 hours of gameplay, maybe he knows what this is about, and that's why he ends up accepting the request. That's when suddenly the princess of the moment appears, introducing himself as Siu Woojin. Our boy goes up to the guy, introduces himself, and greets him, but he immediately notices that the guy didn't have any mana. Looking down, he sees that the guy was wearing a pretty interesting glove with a little pentagram on it. Woojin says he doesn't even deserve something that good, but ends up using it anyway, and Kim replies that he understands, after all, he must have needed something strong enough to seal the mana he has. Looks like that bit of info was crucial, since the whole family got surprised. Our boy smiles and says that now everything became crystal clear the moment he saw the glove. No wonder they were setting so many conditions and asked for a level 1 warrior. Woojin had probably also been baptized by the church order, and the reason he hadn't awakened was because he rejected the baptism, and with that, sealed his own mana to avoid getting burned. Since they didn't want to make that public, they chose to keep it a secret. Then they heard about warrior number 1, who managed to survive the divine fever. And of course, they immediately went to the company he worked for. Woojin stands there impressed and then compliments our boy, saying that apparently they called Sherlock Holmes. But the bastard's licking his lips, saying that nothing is hard to guess when you already know the future. That's because he saw Woojin's face, and he knows it's the same face as the person who, in the future, would become the Church Order's Vanguard Paladin. He refuses the baptism and goes a long time without powers, but eventually, his parents lose all influence. Because of that, he gives in and ends up joining the church. Now the primate dad already changed his expression and is asking if there's some kind of way to remove the baptism from his son. Our boy can already tell the bastard's acting all nice now suddenly humble out of nowhere, but he reveals that yes, there is a way. Obviously, only someone with 10,000 hours of gameplay would know something like that. He says Woojin has already suffered enough. He could count on him to escape that fate. Man, I said he was a princess, but the guy is really acting like one. The bastard's even hugging him right there. And Kim wants to do this to take away yet another person who would have ended up in the church. He's going to steal the future subordinate from her as revenge for trying to baptize him. But suddenly, he stops for a second and tells everyone that to treat the boy, there's one condition. The mom says she understands that now the request got more complex, but whatever he asks, they'll make it happen. Kim then says he wants them to teach him the mountain-smashing sword technique. Suddenly, the parents' expressions change. He's got that smug little grin on his face, but the boss is straight up scared, man. The mom starts exuding an aura and gets closer, wanting to know if he has any idea what he just said. Looking at the 3-meter-tall mom, he wonders why she's being so terrifying. Even the dad, who was the primate earlier, is now hiding, saying he's not dealing with this one. Our boy then explains that a lot of people find it strange that he learned a sword technique in a world focused on information and tech. But in a world like Arcane Soul, where power equals authority, all of that changes. That's because this is a perfect technique to destroy warships and tanks, man. Someone with this kind of power is extremely valued and becomes unmatched on the battlefield. And there's nothing better than learning a technique like that from level 1 and strengthening it from the start of the game. But now looking at the terrifying mom, he says that of course he only wants to learn it if he completes the request. At that, the mom looks at her little princess behind our boy and suddenly turns off the aura. She says fine then. If he manages to heal her son, he'll receive both the sword technique and the nectar. Kim is all happy, man. Those were the two things he wanted the most. He puts on a surprised face, but just look at that bastard's face, saying he never expected something like this and genuinely thanks them. But of course, the mom warns that if he fails, they're not going to be happy about it. Our boy says not to worry, he's going to start the process right now. Next scene, in a room with a mana fusion circle. Along with that, 200 intermediate-grade mana potions. The mom says she prepared everything he asked for. Kim thanks her, but says he wants to be alone with the patient during a treatment. What does this bastard think he's a doctor now to be making these kinds of demands? The mom then apologizes for the way she treated our boy earlier. She reveals that Woojin was baptized before he even started going to school, man. He never even had the chance to make friends and had to live alone. Huh? But why? Like, when you go outside, do you just start burning or something? What's going on here? Couldn't he just make friends without using mana? Do you need mana to have friends in this world now? I guess they'll explain that later. Right. She bows and thanks our boy, saying she's entrusting her son to him. Kim is sure that, just like him, she must also hate that damn saint. And seeing him all princessy, taking care of his mom, makes our boy wonder how this guy is going to become the leader of the vanguard in the future. Then he says for them not to worry, that he guarantees success. When it's just the two of them in the room, our boy tells him to get ready. They're about to begin. The dude's there trembling, and Kim tells him to relax a bit, but Woojin says he's sure. Our boy thinks he's going to torture him, hit him with a bunch of drugs, electric shock, potions, and whatever else to somehow trigger his awakening. Confused, our guy wants to know what kind of treatment he's been trying all this time. The truth is, right, the treatment to cure divine fever is just to drink nectar after you awaken. The problem is, he was cursed so early that even before he had mana of his own, he already absorbed a ton of divine fever energy. That's why he never awakened. And that's why the nectar doesn't work. Grabbing some potions, Kim tells the guy not to worry, just that today's treatment is top secret. Then our boy starts expanding his own mana barrier. The problem is, when he expands the barrier, it starts getting weaker, and he begins getting affected by the divine fever. To keep the barrier expanded, he immediately pulls out 2 potions and starts recovering mana. Throws the bottles behind him, starts recovering mana again. Throws the bottles behind him, starts recovering mana again. After repeating that several times, he gains the trait addicted to drugs. With that trait activated, he would take more damage and consume more mana. But on the other hand, any item he used would have its effect drastically increased. With that trait unlocked, now he just needed to focus on the shield itself. Now, basically with infinite mana while drinking potions, he's able to expand the shield a lot more. The mana fever in him is now much farther away. The kid's all happy, but Kim says things are just getting started. He tells Woojin to take off the glove, put his hand outside the barrier, and hold his hand. Woojin says that if he does that, there's going to be a resonance between the 2 fevers, to which Kim explains the kid will survive since he'll be inside the barrier. With that, the protagonist is already outside and tells him not to ask too many questions. Just do it. The problem is, it's been a long time since Woojin took his mana out, and he's a bit nervous. Ever since the day he was baptized, that was the only way he could survive the extreme pain. But even so, the kid didn't hesitate much, man. He already took off the glove and stretched his hand out of the globe. The problem is, the thing is exploding in Kim's direction, and he's wondering just how much mana this bastard had stored up. It was going to be something terrifying to do, since he was basically going to take both fevers at the same time. As soon as he touches the hand, man, his entire body starts going up in flames. That was hurting way more than the whole baptism process. His bones were breaking and turning into ash while he regenerated. But the hatred he felt toward that damn saint was way stronger than the pain. So out of nowhere, he throws himself inside the globe and falls to the ground along with the little princess. He gains the damage absorption ability, which let him steal the damage another person would take and pass it onto himself. Woojin's already super happy because even without the glove, he was managing to stay calm. Our boy explains it there, kinda obvious, we already got it. He absorbed the divine fever from the kid from inside to outside, which basically weakened the one he already had. And now it was time for the final stage. He hands Woojin the sword and tells him not to stop attacking until he awakens. Woojin answers not to worry since practicing swordsmanship is the only thing he's been doing all this time. He gets ready and lands a direct hit on our guy. Damn, could've gone a little easier, dude. He's already behind him landing another blow. Kim can't believe this bastard broke his steel gauntlet with a wooden sword. At least he obtained the protection trait. The problem is, even with that trait increasing his defense, it wasn't easy surviving this bastard. The guy comes in with another vertical strike. Instead of trying to block it, Kim dodges this time before he takes another one. And boom, he earns another trait, evasion. The problem is that, yeah, he's getting a bunch of traits, but he can only equip 6 at a time, so it's not like he's getting a whole lot stronger, or is he? Then Kim smiles because he sees smoke coming off of Woojin. That was a perfect sign that he was just about to fully awaken. But then he notices something strange. The kid and the sword were glowing the same color. Man, the bastard already awakened at SSR rank with a talent, one with the sword. That's the state where just imagine the person becomes one with the sword. Yeah, very literal. And obviously, it was a ridiculously broken talent for the warrior class. They just had no clue how this bastard managed to awaken that right off the bat. And the worst part is he seemed to be in some kind of trance and wasn't stopping his attacks. Kim is trying to dodge, but one's coming straight for his face. So in the same second, he switches all of his traits to everything he has for defense and recovery. That was the only way he'd at least make it out alive. He raises his barrier with both hands, places a reinforcement circle at his feet. Everything starts stacking and mixing. Woojin's attack comes in full force, and the entire floor of the room gets destroyed. Our boy even had to raise a mana shield. A shield that was a combo of mana barrier and protection. Already standing back up, totally wrecked, he says that this bastard awakened a way too broken talent. That's when he notices Woojin seemed kind of dizzy and then suddenly collapses like a sack of trash. But the sneaky little guy was all happy, falling asleep with a smile on his face, which obviously makes sense. Since it was the first time he awakened, he used up all his mana. It was really expected that this guy would be strong. After all, in the game, he was an SSR character. But when he was baptized, he got forced into becoming a paladin, even though it was clear he was way more suited to the warrior class. Probably what Kim did here was create a monstrous warrior that shouldn't even exist. The timeline of this world was completely altered now that he wasn't going to be part of the church anymore and had become this powerful, which for our boy is perfect, since this monster he just created is a spoiled brat who now owes him a little favor. Sometime later, back in the room with Woojin in bed, everyone's impressed that he actually managed to heal the kid. The parents are already bowing, thanking our boy, who's standing there all full of himself, while saying it was no big deal, no need to worry. The mom strokes her son's hair and says it's been so long since she saw him sleeping with a smile like that. Then she looks at her husband and the two exchange a smile. Seo Jeonju comes over with an envelope saying it contains the information about the mountain-smashing sword technique. Kim says there's no need to worry about that, but obviously, man, he's super anxious. And his expression changes completely when the dad says that, as an extra thank you, he'll also be getting a little bonus. 1 billion won. He's all sweet now, saying he loves kindness, but just look at the bastard's face on the inside. Sometime later, back at the base, the boss says he hit the jackpot. Holding the chip and the nectar, our boy says he's sure he did. The boss wants to know if he's already going to drink the nectar. Kim says yes, and also that he's going to disappear for a while. The boss already knows, right man, after he gets rid of that divine fever, he's going to attract even more attention from the church. It's best if he vanishes before those crazy lunatics start hunting him down. But he finds it kind of sad. If he had time to refine the nectar before drinking it, it would definitely give his mana a major boost. Kim agrees. He knows that's true. Nectar is a pretty rare item for someone at a low level. If it were refined, it would increase his power as a superhuman even more. A while later, he arrives at a hotel, and the boss thanks him for everything. He says that if Kim needs help refining the nectar, just send a message. Our warrior Kim says okay, he'll think about it. But man, the moment he gets to the room, he already opens it up and says he's drinking that thing right now. He's already learned just how cruel and unpredictable this world of Arcane can be. That incident with the damn deer made it very clear that at any moment he could die or be betrayed. On top of that, he's got drug addiction, mana absorption, and potion dependency, all traits that are going to boost the effect, thanks to those 200 mana potions he downed one after another. Well drank, right? The Mumus and the Genius. And now, the second he consumes the nectar, bam, he throws the bottle to the ground and drops to his knees as the divine fever kicks in again. Here he goes again.